$1,000 per month stimulus checks to low-income individuals in the United States is now being proposed, and this is coming as we enter the 2024 presidential elections, as there is a new Democratic candidate that is saying Joe Biden should step aside. He made promises that he did not make good on, and it is time for these to be done. Now, take a look. As you'll recall, this was back in 2021. Joe Biden said $600 is simply not enough when you have to choose between paying rent and putting food on the table. We need $2,000 stimulus checks back in January 10th, and as you recall, this was one of the things that did not come to fruition. Now, take a look at this. Dean Phillips has come to the forefront, and he is saying it is time for stimulus checks, and it is time for Medicare for all. He is saying we need to reform our system and help out those that are most in need. Now, a lot of people are wondering, though, how is he planning to pay for this? I'm going to be sharing with you some of the latest details on this, and take a look, though. He is proposing these things coming out on X. Dean Phillips, I would consider a pilot UBI program in certain urban and rural communities and measure the results before expansion, as he is saying it is time for us to do this. And he's also saying our economy is going to be disrupted with AI, and there are going to be a lot of people very soon losing their jobs, and UBI needs to be something that is implemented right away. Now, in addition to that, for this pilot program, one of the things that could be taken into consideration is the leftover stimulus money from the stimulus packages. As take a look at this, Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. This is all of the COVID money that came out during the pandemic. Legislative action in orange. This is Congress passing stimulus packages, and they had allowed $6.2 trillion of funds to be set aside to help out the American people, of which $5.8 trillion has been dispersed, which literally means there remains $400 billion of leftover stimulus package funds still just sitting there that was meant to go out to help the American people. Now, if we scroll down, you can see a breakdown of the direct payments that went out. There was roughly about $859 billion that went out, and of that, $418 billion was that third $1,400 stimulus check, which means there literally remains enough money to almost send out a $1,400 stimulus check to everybody that received that third check. Maybe they could tap into those funds and use that for those pilot programs that we're seeing Dean Phillips discuss. Now, let me know your thoughts. Should we do this for the low income? What about those on Social Security? Or what about just another stimulus check to help out all the Americans in the United States, as this is leftover funds? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, but let's go ahead and dive right in so you can see the latest that's coming out. And they're saying it is time for this to be done as we enter the 2024 elections, and he is saying it's time for Biden to step aside. Now, let's go ahead and dive right in, but before we do me a quick favor. If you appreciate the updates, don't forget, smash that like button for me. Just takes a second, helps out the channel a ton. If you want to stay up to date, it's totally free. Why not hit the subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, and if you want to stay up to date outside of social media platforms, I've also created SteveRamNews.com. Going to start sending out regular newsletters to keep people updated, and in case anything happens to social media platforms, we can still get information out. But with that being said, you guys, let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, Democratic presidential hopeful Dean Phillips proudly admits that he ruined his career in Congress by launching his controversial primary run against President Joe Biden, saying that he wishes more elect lawmakers would be willing to take similar risks. Phillips officially launched his campaign in late October after months of raising alarm about Biden's abysmal polling numbers. While he initially encouraged other leading Democrats to throw their hat into the ring, the Minnesota congressman eventually decided that if anyone was going to do it, that it would have to be him. While he acknowledges his respect for Biden and his alignment with the president in many issues, Phillips is convinced that the incumbent simply cannot win the 2024 general elections. Let me know your thoughts. Is there no chance of Biden beating Trump in 2024? Recent polls do show Biden poorly positioned against former President Donald Trump, the clear frontrunner for the GOP nominations, as well as against the runner-up, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Biden's defenders, however, point to Democrats' relative success in the midterms as well as the 2023 off-year elections. They say that when given the choice between the extreme GOP and an 81-year-old Democrat, voters will ultimately back the president. Now, the congressman also wants to further explore the idea of UBI, or Universal Basic Income, reoccurring monthly stimulus checks, raised concerns about the impacts of artificial intelligence, and pointed to the success of stimulus checks during the pandemic. One thing that was very popular with the American people during the pandemic was stimulus checks. In the short term, since there are a lot of people suffering economically, a stimulus check is something that you think could be on the table? Well, stimulus checks in some way, shape, and form are like UBI. In fact, more Americans felt financially secure during the pandemic because they had money in the bank. Remember, when almost half of the country can't afford a $400 emergency and a $1,000 check appears in the mail, it's a big deal, and most people have more money in their accounts than they'd ever had at any other time while the economy was closed, where you couldn't spend it. And I think that has something to do with how people are feeling right now. The economy is open again, and people are spending. No direct checks are coming in, and people are not feeling very secure. We did stimulus checks for a reason, during a tragic economic issue that got this country through it just about better than any other in the entire world. But as I consider UBI, I think there is a test case for such a notion of ensuring that the lowest socioeconomical communities in the country have access to capital to at least build lives where they can afford housing, healthcare, and education. He also says that Medicare for All will save the country money. We spend double any country in the world on healthcare. It consumes 18% of our entire economy, and we should be lowering it significantly. It should reduce costs. UBI should be actually a stimulus to part of the economy when people who have nothing are able to buy. But when we have so much wealth concentrated in the hands of a very few, it is not advantageous for the United States of America. So the payment mechanism, if you will, is ensuring that everybody pays their fair share. Nobody builds a company by themselves. Nobody generates extraordinary economic success alone. It takes a country with resources, education, infrastructure, and policy to do so. And when you succeed in America, you have an obligation to share more. Now, in regards to affordability, he says there's a massive encapsulation of Washington that keeps people there from understanding how people are really suffering. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 40% can't afford a $400 emergency. There is a crisis. When the administration says time and time again how great the macroeconomy is, which it is, and I salute them for that, people are still struggling. Let me know if that is you in the comments down below. So let's start with healthcare. It's time for Medicare for All. It's time for every single person in America to have healthcare. 26 million have none. 90 million are uninsured. We pay double per capita any developed nation in the world for healthcare. Our outcomes are mid-pack, and we tolerate pharma companies selling us the same pharmaceuticals that they sell to us at 3, 4, 5, 6 times more than anywhere else in the world. It is unsustainable, it is unfair, and it is a tragedy that has to be addressed. That's the big difference. Housing. We are 7 million homes shy of having enough housing for every American right now. 500,000 living in the streets every single night. Massive difference. Should be an all-hands-on-deck massive housing production initiative. Education. The fact that we are still burdening young people with hundreds of thousands and tens of thousands of dollars in debt to attend college is absurd. 3 areas of affordability that have to be addressed immediately. Fourth, the southern border. It is a disaster, and Democrats should acknowledge that it is not the country's best interest. It's a national security issue. It's also an issue of humanity. What are we forcing migrants to do? Spend their life savings, pay Mexican cartels to bring them across the Rio Grande is tragic. It is a failure of Democratic and Republican administrations for generations. So let me know your thoughts. Would you take into consideration Dean Phillips over President Joe Biden? Or do you think that we need former President Donald Trump or one of the members of the Republican Party to step up and to take control of the nation? Plus, in addition to that, not only are economic issues, we've also got foreign conflicts taking place around the nation, and a lot of people are concerned about our safety. Now, we did hear him address border security and making sure that those here in the United States are safe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now, in addition to that, a lot of people are saying, what about Social Security and improving that before it runs out of funds, taking care of those who depend on it? Well, to get more information on that, be sure to check out this video right here next, as I covered the latest for you, as there's a lot of proposals and new bills coming out to reform, change, and help increase Social Security. But with that being said, you guys, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.